Welcome to Myth and Magic. Go ahead and grab your cozy socks, weather permitting. Grab your favorite drinky drinks. I didn't have time to brew my Creo, so I will be doing water, which is probably wise for me today. And if you have a crown, why not wear it? Today, we are turning away from the sunny revels of Unseelie aristocracy and the busy workshop of the solitary spirits. Instead, we are venturing into the darkest corners of European folklore to explore the cold, predatory, and terrifying world of the Unseelie Court. If you happen to hear any clicking sounds in the background, my kitten is playing with his new toy. To truly understand the Unseelie Court, we have to look to the linguistic roots of traditional Scottish and Northern European folklore. The word seelie stems from the Middle English and Old Scots word seelie, meaning blessed, lucky, or holy. When you add the prefix un, it literally translates to the unblessed court, or the unholy folk. In Irish tradition, while they are still part of the Dina Si, they are often referred to as the Slua Si, which translates to the fairy host or the ghostly throng, a collective group of spirits associated with the night, winter, and the cold northern wind. Their very name served as a warning to mortals that these entities carried no good will. The historical origins of the Unseelie Fae are deeply tied to the darker, more destructive aspects of ancient mythology. In the Irish mythological cycle, while the Seelie Court traces its lineage back to the radiant Tuatha De Danann, the Unseelie are often linked to the Fomorians, a prehistoric race of chaotic, monstrous deities who represented the violent sea, night, and the brutal winter frost. And I believe that these two entities were often at odds with each other. If you're curious, you can go look at my Celtic Gods playlist. In Christianized Scottish folklore, the original story shifted. It was believed that when the rebel angels were cast out of heaven, those who fell into the deep oceans and the desolate, barren moors became the Unseelie Fae. They were born from the shadows of the world, embodying the harsh realities of nature's decay. Now forget the modern misconceptions that the Unseelie Court consists only of ugly, distorted monsters. Like their Seelie counterparts, the high nobility of the Unseelie Court are human-sized or taller, possessing a sharp, devastating beauty. But theirs is the beauty of winter, shadows, and the hunt. Their skin is often described as deathly pale, like polished marble or fresh snow, contrasting with hair as black as raven's wings or as white as frost. Their eyes are dark and predatory, catching the light like a cat's in the night. They dress in rich, somber colors, midnight blue, deep crimson, and charcoal gray velvet. That sounds really pretty. Often adorned with silver ornaments shaped like bare branches, thorns, or bones. When they travel, they do not ride white steeds. They ride massive, coal-black horses with eyes of burning amber, their armor muted and silent in the dark. And I'm picturing a Frisian horse, even though I believe that is Spanish. But they are dark, powerful, majestic horses that are just gorgeous. If you haven't seen one, look them up. Frisian, Fresian. I used to want one really, really bad. Still kind of do. The overarching purpose of the Unseelie Court is the governance of the dark half of the year, autumn, winter, and the midnight hours. They represent nature's hostility toward mankind, the biting frost, the blinding blizzards, and the predatory shadows. Unlike the Seelie Fae, who can be appeased through flawless etiquette, the Unseelie personality is defined by an inherent active malice towards humanity. They do not operate on honor or weaponized mannerisms. They operate on power, hunger, and whim. The Unseelie view humans not as a lesser species to be observed, but as prey to be hunted, toys to be broken, or sources of raw emotional terror which they feast upon. They are fiercely cruel, bound by no moral codes, and take immense pleasure in causing chaos, madness, and despair. This is your ultimate shadow daddy romance if you can find a way to keep the essence of the Unseelie Court Fae and somehow make him good enough to not be problematic for his romantic interest. The magic of the Unseelie Court is vast, rooted in the manipulation of darkness, rot, and illusion. While the Seelie use the glamour to create beautiful illusions, the Unseelie use it to manifest nightmares, warp perceptions, and drive mortals to the brink of insanity. Their greatest and most terrifying attributes is the Sluagh, the host of the unforgiving dead. On dark winter nights, the Unseelie Court takes to the sky in a screaming, chaotic aerial procession. They hunt for lonely travelers, swooping down to abduct mortals, flying them across the mountains, and forcing them to participate in their malicious acts before dropping them from great heights. They also possess absolute control over rot and blight, capable of destroying entire villages' crops or livestock overnight with a single cold breath. Romance with the Unseelie Court is a dark, perilous affair, take notes. While the solitary Fae seek companionships out of loneliness, the Unseelie seek mortals out of absolute predatory obsession. When an Unseelie royal fixes their gaze upon a mortal woman or man, it is never a gentle courtship. It is a slow, psychological entrapment. Stockholm Syndrome. They use their dark glamour to appear as the mortal's deepest, most intoxicating desire, luring them away from their families and into the shadows. These unions are defined by possession. The Unseelie partner views the human as a prized, fragile pet. The mortal is showered with dark luxury within the subterranean winter palaces, but the magic eventually consumes them, draining their vitality until they fade into shadows themselves, forever trapped in the eternal winter of the court. Historically, the Unseelie Court is accompanied by specific symbols that represent their dark status. The black raven symbolizes death, war, and the gathering of the dark host. The iron thorn represents the piercing, painful nature of their magic and their control over winter vegetation. Their power peaks during the full moon, illuminating their midnight hunts across the moors. In traditional woodcuts and early illustrations, they are depicted as fierce, solemn warriors and skeletal queens, moving in chaotic, wind-blown hosts across stormy skies, casting long shadows over human villages below. Historically, humans never attempted to worship the Unseelie Court, nor did they ever attempt to build relationships with the Unseelie Court, as they were viewed as entirely unappeasable. Instead, worship took the form of absolute defense, banishment, and warding. Communities practiced strict survival methods during the dark months. Windows were shuttered and bolted on sew-in. Salt was scattered across thresholds, and pieces of real rowan wood and cold iron were pinned to doors to repel the dark hosts. In modern folklore and Gothic subcultures, the Unseelie Court has left a powerful legacy, embodying the aesthetic of dark fantasy, cosmic horror, and the necessary destructive cycles of nature that allow for rebirth. The dark predatory nature of the Unseelie Court has made them a staple of modern dark fantasy media, books, and games. In literature, we talked about the Dresden Files before. This is a series by Jim Butcher. Queen Mab and the Winter Court perfectly embody the traditional Unseelie archetype, cold, calculating, bound by cruel logic, and utterly lethal, representing the predatory side of nature. The Merry Gentry, a series by Laurel K. Hamilton, delves into the complex, dangerous, and often explicit political infighting within the Unseelie Court, highlighting their affinity for shadows, physical power, and ancient cruelty. In television and film, 2014 movie Maleficent, the aesthetic of the Moors when plunged into darkness, filled with thorny barriers, shadowy creatures, and a fierce, powerful fairy ruler, draws heavily from the Unseelie folklore. The Grimm TV series frequently features Wesson and entities inspired by the darker predatory side of European folklore, operating in the hidden shadows of human society. In video games, Kingdom of Amalur: Reckoning features the Winter Court of the Fae, who are locked in a cyclical conflict with the Summer Court, perfectly capturing their obsession with decay, endings, and the inevitable turn of the seasons. And then there's Changeling: The Lost, a table RPG game. It explores the terrifying reality of humans being abducted by the true Fae, focusing heavily on the oppressive, dark, and nightmarish nature of the autumn and winter courts. And that is it for this segment, but it's a very short segment, so we're going to attach our story time to this video. It's going to be just one. So here we go. To truly understand, like their name, how original folklore viewed these dark spirits, we're going to look at 4 traditional, historically documented narratives showcasing their malice, their hunts, and their terrifying encounters with humanity. Story 1. The Feast of the Grey Hound. Loki really want to have a grey wolf, so maybe someday. This story is from traditional Irish folklore compiled from the West Coast legends. It demonstrates the deceptive hospitality of the Unseelie Court and how their gifts always carry a hidden destructive purpose. A wealthy, greedy chieftain named Cormac was hunting in the dense woods of Connacht when a sudden supernatural fog separated him from his hounds and men. As night fell and the temperature plummeted to a freezing chill, he spotted a grand castle glowing with dark, torch-lit splendor amidst the trees. A castle that had never been there before. Desperate to shelter, Cormac knocked on the iron gates. They swung open silently, revealing a magnificent banquet hall filled with pale, silent lords and ladies dressed in midnight blue velvet. At the high table sat the Unseelie king, who welcomed Cormac with a cold, unblinking smile. The king offered him a seat and a golden platter piled high with roasted meats and sweet, dark wine. Cormac, driven by greed and hunger, feasted, ignoring the eerie, total silence of the court. When the feast ended, the Unseelie king presented Cormac with a gift of his hospitality, a magnificent grey hound with eyes like burning coals. "This hound will never lose a scent," the king whispered. "But remember this law. You must never let him cross running water." Cormac thanked the king, fell asleep, and woke up the next morning lying on the cold, damp moss, the castle completely gone, but the greyhound standing beside him. For months, the hound made Cormac the most successful hunter in Ireland, but one day, a stag leaped across a rushing mountain river. Forgetful in his excitement, Cormac ordered the hound to follow. The moment the grey hound's paws touched running water, the Unseelie magic inverted. The hound transformed into a monstrous skeletal wolf. It turned on Cormac, tearing his hunting party to pieces and leaving the chieftain ruined and broken. A stark reminder that the hospitality of the Unseelie Court always ends in blood. Story 2. The Abduction of the Blacksmith's Son. This is from traditional Scottish Highland lore, collected by John Gregson Campbell. This narrative explores the terrifying reality of the Unseelie abductions and the chilling nature of changelings left in the wake of the Dark Host. In the shadows of the Cairngorms Mountains, a sturdy blacksmith named Duncan left his young son sleeping in the cradle while he worked the forge late into the night. As the clock struck midnight, a violent, freezing gust of wind blew open the heavy wooden doors, extinguishing the forge fire. Through the smoke, Duncan heard a chorus of cruel, mocking laughter echoing from the rafters. When he rushed to the cradle, his heart froze. His vibrant, laughing boy was gone. In his place lay a withered, ancient-looking creature with skin like wrinkled parchment and long, claw-like fingers. It was an Unseelie changeling. Unlike Seelie changelings, who simply wasted away, this entity was malicious. It screamed entirely through the night with a sound that drove the farm animals mad, and its dark eyes watched Duncan with a look of pure, intelligent hatred. Duncan, knowing the old secrets of iron, refused to be broken. He gathered a pile of dry wood, built a massive fire outside, and laid his heaviest iron anvil hammer into the flames until it glowed white hot. He approached the cradle, lifted the changeling by its rough skin, and held it directly over the heat, demanding the return of his true son. The changeling let out a terrifying, unearthly shriek that didn't sound human. The sky above the cottage turned pitch black as the Unseelie host hovered in the clouds. Realizing the blacksmith would rather destroy the imp with cold iron than surrender to fear, the Unseelie king relented. A whirlwind swept through the yard, dropping Duncan's true, laughing son safely onto the grass, while the withered changeling dissolved into a pile of dead leaves and soot, flying up into the dark night sky to join the host. Story 3. The Captive of the Winter Palace. This is from traditional Anglo-Scottish border ballads, the Legend of Tam Lin variants. This story delves into the dark romance of the Unseelie Court, showing how their possessive obsession traps mortal souls in a cold, unchanging existence. A beautiful, free-spirited young woman named Janet frequently wandered the forbidden moors of Carterhaugh, despite the warnings that the Unseelie Court claimed the land during the winter months. One frosty twilight, she was confronted by a young knight riding a coal-black steed. He was impossibly handsome, with skin like marble and eyes as dark as the deep night sky. His name was Lord Byron, a mortal knight who had been abducted and secluded by the Unseelie Queen centuries ago. Byron spoke to Janet in whispers, his voice carrying the chilling beauty of the winter wind. Janet was instantly ensnared by his dark glamour, falling into a passionate, secret romance on the moors. But as the weeks passed, she noticed Byron's touch grew colder, and his eyes held a look of profound, desperate terror. One night, he broke his silence. "The Unseelie Queen owns my soul," he wept, his tears freezing on his pale cheeks. "Every 7 years, at the midwinter solstice, the court must pay a tithe to the dark powers of the underworld, and this year the queen intends to sacrifice me. You must rescue me from the midnight ride, or I will be lost to the shadows forever." He gave her the terrifying instructions. She must stand at the crossroads on midwinter night, wait for the roaring storm of the Unseelie host, and pull him down from his black horse, holding him tight through whatever monstrous transformations the queen used against her. Janet braved the freezing storm that night, facing the screaming host. She successfully dragged Byron from his saddle, holding him fast even as the queen transformed him into a biting lizard, a roaring bear, and finally a burning coal. Janet plunged the coal into a well of holy water, breaking the Unseelie claim. The Unseelie queen let out a curse of fury from the skies, but bound by the laws of the crossroads, she was forced to retreat, leaving Byron free to live a mortal life once more. All right, our last story, story 4, the Sluagh of the Desolate Moor. This is from traditional Outer Hebrides folklore, or Western Scotland. This final narrative explores the ultimate terror of the Unseelie Court, the Sluagh, and the absolute necessity of defensive folklore to survive the dark host. A lone, weary traveler named Murdo was journeying across the bleak, barren moors of the Outer Hebrides late on a bitter December night. He had missed his curfew, and the moon was completely hidden behind thick, heavy storm clouds. Suddenly, the ambient sound of the moor died away. The wind dropped, replaced by an eerie, freezing silence that made his breath catch in his throat. Then, from the northern horizon, came a sound like 1,000 rushing wings combined with the distant, agonizing screams of a battlefield. It was the Sluagh, the gathering of the Unseelie host, flying low over the earth to hunt for mortal souls. Murdo remembered the ancient warnings of his grandfather. If the Sluagh finds you standing tall on the open moor, they will lift you into the sky, tear your flesh, and force your spirit to join their midnight crimes. With no trees or rocks for shelter, Murdo did the only thing that could save him. He dropped face down into the wet, freezing heather, spreading his arms wide to mimic the form of a fallen cross, and pressed his face hard into the dirt. The dark host descended upon the ridge like a black cloud. Murdo felt the temperature drop below freezing as the air filled with the stench and rot of stagnant water. He could hear the rushing of leather wings directly above his head, and the cold, ghostly fingers of the Unseelie lords brushed against his coat as they swept past. They screamed into the wind, searching for his soul, but because he lay flat against the earth, bound by his defensive posture, their magic could not latch onto him. The host raged for what felt like hours, circling the hill before finally flying off toward the southern mountains. Murdo lay frozen until dawn broke, walking home with white hair, a living testament to the terrifying reality of the Unseelie host. Thank you for listening to this deep dive on the Unseelie Court. Not a whole lot here, but try to go find your own research. Do a little digging. Maybe there's something I missed. I hope you enjoyed the courts little series we've done here. I want to look at doing some more fairy stuff, see if there's anything specific like I did with the Trooping Fae, and cross our fingers that we might be able to find something fun. If not, we'll move on and we'll see what happens. But anyway, keep your socks cozy. Enjoy the rest of your favorite drinky drink. Hopefully you were able to have whatever you wanted, or if not, water is a great option. Drink more water. And if you have a crown, I hope you have a chance to wear it. And remember, when the winter winds howl in winter, bolt your doors, trust the cold iron, and stay off the open moors. And I will see you next time. Please be kind, please be safe,